Welcome back to the Deep Discog Dive. I finally decided to clap back at my haters, and nothing says clap back like 90-word poems. The problem is, I'm only at 7 words so far. Stinky, stinky, poo-poo, face and head. Fiona Apple makes it look so easy. Today, we're talking about Fiona Apple. Let's dive in.
I had pretzels in my hand.
This section briefly touches on the subject of sexual violence. Viewer discretion is advised. Fiona Apple McAfee-Maggart was born in New York City in 1977. Both of her parents had careers in the arts, and that same aptitude passed down to young Fiona. She learned piano at age 8 and started writing songs at 11. Her childhood wasn't too great. Fiona was plagued by bullying at school, tensions with her parents, eating disorders, and an active sexual assault against her as a teen. I won't go into severe detail about that since I don't believe that part of her story is mine to tell, but yeah, her adolescence was not easy. After enough musical practice, she went to visit her father in LA and recorded a 3-song demo onto 78 tapes. One of those tapes was given to a friend who just so happened to be babysitting for a music publicist who then passed it to Sony executive Andrew Slater. Next thing you know, Fiona was signed to Sony subsidiary Epic Records, recording her debut album with a full band and Andrew as producer. Who knew getting famous was that simple? Fiona Apple's debut album, Tidal, released in July 1996. Tidal maps out the sonic cartograph that Fiona will chart for the rest of her career. Songs built around voice, piano, and drums, with the occasional dash of bass, strings, guitar, percussion, even a Chamberlain solo for when you're feeling frisky. Even at the age of 18, Fiona was already a great pianist and vocalist, with one hell of a chest voice. What's especially crazy is that Fiona had never performed these songs live or had even been on a stage, but she already performs like a seasoned veteran. As a producer, Andrew Slater is fine. His background includes work for the Wallflowers and Warren Zevon, and if he has any signature touches, then I just don't know his work well enough to catch them. But I am catching the occasional contributions from John Bryan. For example, he adds marimba and vibraphone on lead single Shadowboxer, and those elements take an already good song about temptation into this swirling, mysterious ballad. Speaking of temptation, the lyrics all center around love, specifically feelings of lust, temptation, and betrayal. Sleep to Dream kicks the record off with a declaration to move on from a bad relationship. The First Taste fantasizes about a potential lover. Never Is a Promise was one of the songs recorded on that first demo tape, a devastating song capturing the first time you ever learned someone you like someone else. But the most well-known song is probably Criminal, a song written during a 45-minute lunch break because the label wanted a hit. And boy did they get a hit with this one. I'd argue to this day, many would still associate Fiona Apple with this song. Actually, I'm looking at my CD copy of Tidal, and it still has this little insert. This compact disc contains a free multimedia portion. Put this disc in your CD-ROM drive for an interactive music experience. I tried, and unfortunately, I can't access it. Must be because I'm not running on that dank Mac LC3. While I personally believe Fiona's future albums will do everything Tidal does but better, Tidal is still a good album and crucial in its introduction of Fiona Apple. Tidal was an immediate smash hit upon arrival, rocking the music world like a wave of some sort. Longitudinal. The album went on to sell 3 million copies in the US, and Criminal got Fiona her first Grammy. But with all that success came immense pushback. A lot of the public saw Fiona's brutally honest personality in interviews and press as standoffish and even bratty. There's also the matter of how Fiona, a 19-year-old girl, was presented during this time. Look back at any bit of press around Tidal, and there's this off-putting tone to it all. Check out this Rolling Stone article. 1 minute, she was a waif. The next, a killer bitch. But maybe she's just a young girl with talent, problems, and an addiction to telling the truth. That sounds like the tagline of a Robert Rodriguez revenge flick. Not to mention, there was this controversial music video for Criminal showing Fiona in various states of undress. According to those involved, it was meant to satirize Calvin Klein, which had just gotten out of a controversy for advertising teen models in a similar way. On one hand, I get that. On the other hand, I do not trust most other people to get that. Speaking of music videos, she won Best Music Video for Sleep to Dream at the 1997 MTV VMAs. This was, in retrospect, a nice speech, where Fiona quotes Maya Angelou and tells viewers to be true to themselves. But I bet that's not what you remember this speech for. You probably remember it for this.
Everybody out there that's watching, everybody that's watching this world is both.
Did this really rile people up that much? It's not even a lie. It is! I'm so glad we've moved beyond petty pop culture drama like that.
Go ahead, leave a comment saying otherwise. I'm not leaving this reality I've created for myself.
All of this made Fiona a tabloid magnet, as every outspoken statement and high-profile relationship became fodder. Even music publications caught heat. A 1997 Spin profile gave an infamously poor impression of Fiona, and at some point during the noise, Fiona decided to use that frustration in her music. In November 1999, Fiona released When the pawn hits the conflicts, he thinks like a king. What he knows throws the blows when he goes to the fight, and he'll win the whole thing before he enters the ring. There's no body to batter when your mind is your might. So when you go solo, you hold your own hand, and remember that depth is the greatest of heights. And if you know where you stand, then you know where to land. And if you fall, it won't matter, cause you'll know that you're right. Already the album is bars. It's a poem/diss track Fiona wrote towards that Spin profile I just mentioned. It was also, at the time, the world record for longest album title. That frustration is made abundantly clear on the opener, On the Bound. Listen to Fiona's voice there. She does this thing in her music going forward where she pushes her voice, gives it just a hint of wavering tension. It gives the feeling like she's one act of aggression away from just screaming, and it makes her performances so captivating. Fiona's voice isn't the only change here because... oh my god, the sound of this record. When the Pawn's producer is John Bryan, returning from Tidal. Production-wise, it's similar to Tidal, but everything somehow sounds less polished, but better. The piano is more dynamic, the drums punch harder, Fiona's voice sounds great like I just said, and every accessory instrument is placed so well in the mix. John's production on this, specifically on songs like To Your Love and Fast As You Can, is nothing short of immaculate. Also, quick aside, John's work with Fiona would eventually get the attention of Kanye West. He brought John on to produce Late Registration because of Tidal and this album, and Kanye even said he wanted to be the rap version of Fiona. When the Pawn also establishes a new lyrical theme that will run through the rest of Fiona's work, the idea of love as a destructive force. Many times on this album, Fiona paints love as a sickness, a hunger, something in need of curing, like on Paper Bag, and the closer, I Know.
You can use my skin to bury secrets
in tandem with the more visceral performances, these words can hit like 18-wheelers. Also, just a quick mention, the Japanese bonus edition includes a cover of the Beatles' Across the Universe. This was originally done for the 1998 film Pleasantville. It's excellent. Go listen to it. Do it! Tidal was important for getting Fiona's foot in the door, but when the Pawn kicks that door down, builds a new one, looks back at everyone trying to pass through, and says, "Try me now, dinkos." When the Pawn got even more critical acclaim than Tidal, but it absolutely sold less. It's gone on to sell a third of what Tidal sold. Now, is that bad? No, that's still 1 million. Of course it's a lot, Sawyer. Sitting there eating your frickin' pasta alla Norma. Fiona was musically tapped out by the time When the Pawn released, but she continued to meet regularly with John Bryan, and once enough time passed, the two decided to get cracking on some new material. John's motive wasn't just artistic drive, though. At that time, he was working on the score for Paul Thomas Anderson's Punch Drunk Love, which starred John's ex, Mary Lynn Ricecub. Turns out, having to watch and rewatch footage of your ex for hours on end makes a man want to do something else. Right before they got to work, though, Fiona released a few songs with the late Johnny Cash, including a beautiful cover of Bridge Over Troubled Water. Fiona and John set up shop at the Paramore Mansion in LA in early 2002, the same mansion that partly inspired My Chemical Romance to make The Black Parade. Random crossover fact. They spent roughly 6 months living and recording there, and the process was very slow going. John described it as waiting around for Fiona to write songs. Eventually, Sony came a-knocking and gave them a deadline. The resulting, basically complete album was handed over and shelved in 2003 due to a lack of anything resembling a hit. Sony offered to fund a new batch of recording sessions on a per-song basis, but Fiona rejected. The previously announced release window of February 2004 passed, with no album in sight. And this is where things get fun. In June 2004, 2 songs from these sessions leaked online. More songs followed, and they got a boost in attention thanks to a Seattle radio DJ playing them on air. This spurred fans to pressure Sony and Epic to release the album. They even formed a free Fiona campaign, sending foam apples to Sony's offices. Meanwhile, in an attempt to get literally anything out, Fiona managed to work out a re-recorded version of this album with producer Mike Elizondo. Here's a selection of Mike's most well-known songs.
We don't talk about Bruno, no. My friends are heathens, taking slow. Find me in the club, bottle full of bub, mama, I got what you need. Alright, now lose it. Just lose it.
Naturally, he was a perfect fit for Fiona. This new version was recorded very much on the cheap and with virtually no label input. Not because they kept the label away, but because the label was just happy something would come out that didn't financially suck them dry. By the end, only 2 John Bryan produced tracks made it onto this new version, which didn't matter much because by March 2005, the entirety of the John Bryan version was available online. After all that hullabaloo, Fiona & Co. finally released Extraordinary Machine in October 2005. And somehow, it's good. Think of this one as a more fully produced version of When the Pawn, retaining many of that album's qualities while giving it a sheen comparable to Tidal. Get Him Back is, according to legend, but not according to Fiona, about her relationship with director Paul Thomas Anderson. It's also got this sick chromatically ascending bit in the chorus.
And you will see my face as I figure how to kill what I cannot catch.
Not About Love documents a nasty fight between 2 partners, which I didn't realize because I was too busy marveling at Zach Galifianakis' lovely singing voice. Please, Please, Please tackles the very nature of creative output and the feeling of audiences demanding the same old from artists. The 2 John Bryan songs bookend the record, the title track and Waltz Better Than Fine. They're quite lovely and serve as logical conclusions to the Baroque orchestration Fiona and John had been toying with for the past few years. Even with high points though, I don't really enjoy this as much as I enjoyed When the Pawn. Because it occupies that middle space between her first 2 albums, the result is that this doesn't feel like a step forward. It's just a collection of Fiona Apple songs, which is still very good, but not mind-blowing. But that's all about the album that was officially released. What about that leaked version? The whole thing is available online. According to John, it was basically done, and it's also good. I know it has diehard fans and was even reviewed more positively than its official version by some, but it's essentially the official version, gaining more orchestral touches thanks to John, but losing a more cohesive mix. Get Him Back is a great example. Sure, the John Bryan version has nice strings,
He put himself so low he can hardly even.
but it doesn't have the official song's crisp snare and unnerving keyboard touches. The John Bryan version of the album doesn't make it significantly better, it just provides a new angle on these songs. There's also the fact that both Fiona and John have disavowed it. They're both unhappy with it being out in the world for their own reasons. Frankly, it's a miracle that Extraordinary Machine is any good after the years of toil preceding it. And it is good, do not get me wrong. It is worth checking out, though in my opinion, only once you've checked out the rest of Fiona's work. So how is everyone feeling after that? Extraordinary Machine got a fairly wide reaction, some big critical praise and some lesser reactions. Fiona toured the record for the next year or so, including some dates opening for Coldplay. Between records, Fiona Apple consumed nutrients, probably. Yeah, so this will be a trend going forward. Fiona won't be as much of a public figure, instead popping up every so often to release a one-off track or appear on someone else's. Let's see what's up first. Come On and Get It Up in Dem Guts with Zach Galifianakis.
Daytona,
Up in them guts.
New York,
Up in them guts.
troops,
Up in them guts.
Iraqi.
Up in them guts.
This is the greatest song Fiona has ever made. There was a cover of Sally's song from The Nightmare Before Christmas, an Elvis Costello cover, but none of that made up for the fact that Fiona's world record for longest album title was stolen in 2008 by Chumbawamba, the anarcho-punk band that made the Get Knocked Down song, disrespect of the highest caliber. Around late 2010, we started getting updates of some new Fiona Apple album. Said news was greeted by Epic Records records with a what? Fiona soon came out saying that there would be a new record, but not until Epic got a new president. Once they did, they confirmed a new record and a bunch of tour dates, including shows at South by Southwest 2012. I remember hearing fan reviews of those shows specifically and how amazing they were, and we didn't have to wait long to hear those new songs for ourselves. June 2012 saw the release of The Idler Wheel is Wiser Than the Driver of the Screw, and Whipping Cords Will Serve You More Than Ropes Will Ever Do. Oh, okay, that one wasn't too bad. Hearing this album for the first time confirmed every bit of praise earned from those South by Southwest shows. Here's the thing, the piano and vocals you'd expect from a Fiona Apple album are still here, but the big change this time is in the drums. Most of the percussion is either created from other instruments like the guitar chunks on Daredevil, or it butts in like the distant rollicking drums on Jonathan. Opener Every Single Night is effectively just Fiona, a Celesta, and a marimba. It works well for a song about a fight with your own brain. Heck, on a song like Anything We Want, it sounds like Fiona's take on that one song from Tarzan. Plus, all of these sounds in the mix don't always appear as you'd expect. A sound might be panned hard left or right, or it might be presented as unusually distant or close. It reminds me of Spoon's Kill the Moonlight, a record that also played with the idea of what a conventional recorded mix could sound like. I imagine a large part of that was due to this record's main producer, Charlie Drayton, who was Fiona's touring drummer. The seedy to Fiona's feedy. That's not a joke or anything, that's just how they're nicknamed in the liner notes. And in terms of lyrics, Fiona packs in ingenious lyrics that can wistfully dance around you, then blink and there's a knife in your stomach. Like on Periphery, which ends its chorus with Fiona flatly stating, "I don't even like you anymore at all." Or Werewolf, which paints a picture of an unhealthy relationship with both parties to blame.
We can still support each other. All we gotta do is avoid each other.
Even Hot Knife, which is the closest to a pure love song, depicts Fiona as a literal knife. Speaking of which, oh, I adore this song. It's the best closing track on any Fiona Apple album. The consistent timpani provides the backbone. Fiona introduces different layers of vocals, eventually combining and stacking them together until simply masterful. By the way, the other girl singing in the music video, Fiona's sister Maud, who had gone on to be a cabaret singer. The Idler Wheel is excellent. Not only a return to form, but a brand new way of thinking about what a Fiona Apple record could be. The Idler Wheel saw the greatest acclaim of any Fiona record since When the Pawn, and somehow it managed to stand out during the absolutely packed year for music, that was 2012. You know how good you gotta be to go up against Celebration Rock and Live? More one-off singles followed in the years after its release. The opening theme for the show The Affair, a cover of Pure Imagination for a Chipotle ad, a great duet with Andrew Bird, a rendition of I Know from When the Pawn with King Princess, the closing song for the series finale of The Affair. Don't you love it when periods of your life are bookended by a Showtime series? A new record began taking shape when rehearsals started in 2015. The idea was a loose concept about Fiona's home and using the home as a part of the music itself. You're gonna find out why that's funny in a bit. The process from there was slow. Recording started in July 2015, and mixing started 4 years later. Much of these songs were recorded in Fiona's home studio, using unconventional sound sources. One day, I won a liner credit for backing Barks. Fiona Apple's latest record as of this video released itself in April 2020, Fetch the Bolt Cutters. The title comes from the show The Fall, and it speaks to breaking out of whatever prison you're in, to getting yourself out of the situation you're currently experiencing. A very nice sentiment to be sure. However, I don't know how well bolt cutters fare against a virus. Yes, Fiona's new album, centered around the home, was released when a lot of people were stuck inside the home. Apparently, the record was set to be released later in 2020, but the pandemic inspired Fiona to get it to people as soon as possible. And that was a very good move. But it's not like this album needed those circumstances to be considered good. The same off-kilter percussive production from Idler Wheel is here, but there's a greater sense of cohesion to it. It sounds less like random items found in a junkyard and more like, I guess, intentionally chosen items found in a junkyard. Fiona described this new approach as percussion orchestras, and part of that has to do with how the album was recorded. The whole thing was done in GarageBand, and many of the takes were done in long sprints because Fiona was still new to the software. The approach allows for these little moments of humanity to pop up every so often, like the sounds of dogs barking on the title track. I'm coming for that credit. I Want You to Love Me started as just a love song to an ex and eventually transformed into a reflection on meditation and the meaning of life. Also, in case you don't know, it goes very well with Carly Rae Jepsen's Run Away With Me. Shamika is a dedication to a schoolmate who asked why Fiona was trying to sit with the cool kids and then said she had potential. It also has some of the best hand claps in recent memory.
My dog and my man and my music is my holy trinity.
Also, the titular Shamika, it turns out, went on to do music of her own. She even made a remixed version of this song featuring Fiona after the two reconnected. Cosmonauts is a holdover from Fiona's sessions for the Judd Apatow movie This Is 40. The closer, On I Go, is a version of a Vipassana chant Fiona sang during a 2012 jail stint after getting caught with hash in Texas. And I'll say it again, that one line about the bed on For Her still hits like a sledgehammer. The greatest compliment I can give Bolt Cutters is that these songs truly feel like lived experiences. If some random person told me to break free from my current predicament, my response would be, okay, whatever, how did you get into my home? But when Fiona says it and brings these songs as backup, then the two of us are going on a road trip to the nearest Harbor Freight.
I will, whatever happens.
Hey, where's my money? You cute little guy, where's my money?
Fetch the Bolt Cutters somehow saw even more praise than the Idler Wheel, even getting the first Pitchfork 10 since Peppa Pig's first tape. Some of that has to be owed to its perfect timing, as well as it being good and also great. It even went on to win 2 Grammys, which Fiona celebrated by intentionally sleeping through the ceremony. There's only been 3 new music updates from Fiona since Bolt Cutters. She played piano on Bob Dylan's most recent album, she did a cover of Sharon Van Etten's Love More, and she was on Phoebe Bridgers' cover of Silent Night. According to a video message, she's currently working on the score for a short documentary on court watching, the practice of monitoring court hearings to keep the justice system accountable. She posts updates like this every so often, and they're a great way to keep up with whatever Fiona's doing or thinking about. If you want to get into Fiona Apple, you're bound to enjoy any record of hers that you start with, but my personal favorites were When the Pawn, The Idler Wheel, and Fetch the Bolt Cutters. And if you have a favorite Fiona Apple song, album, related thing, I would love to know what it is in the comments.